You are about to take part in the most intense history lesson of your life. You are now leaders and foreign ministers of major countries on a collision course with destiny. Who will survive and who will fall? It's all up to you. This is a simulation, but there is no guaranteed outcome. Welcome to the World War I Student Orientation video. My name is Mr. Harms and I teach world history, and I'm the author of the World War I simulation. I'm going to explain the different parts of the simulation and try to show you how everything works so that when the simulation starts, you'll be ready to go. Don't be overwhelmed. It seems like a lot at first, but after the first day, you'll understand everything that's going on and see how everything works. And hopefully you'll become an expert strategist and an expert diplomat in your class. Good luck. The leader list outlines who the leaders are for each country and in some cases who the foreign minister is. The president is in charge of the country and makes the final decisions. The foreign minister is in charge of negotiating with other countries and advising the president. The intelligence report tells us how large each army is, their estimated rating, and how much overall military power they have. It also gives the same information on each navy involved in the simulation. An alliance certificate is an agreement between two or more countries to defend each other in case of an attack. This is called a defensive alliance. An offensive alliance is when you are totally allied and going to attack someone else together. Alliance documents are used to sign alliances between countries. You can also dictate whether or not an alliance is public or secret. If it's public, the teacher will read it out loud to the class. If it's secret, you don't need to show anyone, including the teacher. Declaration of War Slips. The declaration of war slip is signed by the president and handed into the head table, or the teacher, to declare war and attack another country. You must have the number of forces that you're going to take into combat against the other side. You also need to have, if you're doing a multinational force, in other words, multiple countries are attacking another country all at once, you need to turn those all in at the same time. You can't add anyone afterwards after the slips are handed in. So whatever you hand in is what you're going with. Your top secret document should stay that way, top secret. Your Army and Navy, if you have one, will be listed. Your alliances, secret and known, will be listed as well. The number of troops that will be mobilized each year is listed if you choose to mobilize. The summary of your country details your country's situation and helps define some of your objectives. Your objectives are listed last. These are your goals for the simulation. In order to get those points, you need to make a legitimate attempt to try to achieve your objectives. The World Situation Summary details the current circumstances in the world in 1914 when the simulation starts. The European alliance system map shows the alliances that existed in 1914. You want to keep this in mind before you take any action. Each class period will represent 1 year starting with 1914 and ending in 1918. The day before the simulation, 1913, is the orientation day. The teacher will explain the rules and students will be able to ask questions. The war map is divided into countries that were involved in World War I. The Allies are orange in color, the Central Powers are light green, and the neutral countries are yellow. Uninvolved countries are gray and cannot be involved in the simulation in any way. Some countries are divided into zones like Germany with G1, G2, and G3. All the seas, oceans, and major islands are also marked, including significant boundaries like the Ardennes Forest and the Dardanelles Strait in the Ottoman Empire. The seas and oceans are divided into zones, which creates a more realistic time frame for naval movement and the transport of troops. Each land zone and country are separate objects that enable you to change their color on the map. So like F2 down here, you can click on that and you can change that to neutral. Or to, if the Central Powers happen to take it over, you could change that to Central Powers color. Also, if they change alliance or something, you can change those colors. The kids love to see the colors change because they know who's with who on the map, and when they conquer territory, they like to see that they own it now. So one of the things that I like to do is to change or to get those maps out and available to the students so that they can plan their strategy. You can low tech, you can just print them off and post them outside your room, or if you have Moodle, you can save them as a PDF for each year of the simulation, for each period, and post those to Moodle so that they can see those at any time, because they will use them a lot. They like to draw on them and make their arrows of how many troops are going where. They really do a lot of pre-class planning in order to be prepared for the day, even though those plans might go awry rather quickly. The countries in gray on the map cannot be involved in the simulation in any way. You can't invade them, you can't pass through them, and you can't do anything to them. These are the countries of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Albania, Spain, and Switzerland. The order of turns starts with the Central Powers, followed by the Allies, followed by the neutrals. The teacher will tell the class that the Central Powers are up and ask if there are any declarations of war. The Central Powers will declare war if there is any, and when they are done, they can move anything that they did not use during the war phase. Then it will be the same for the Allies and then for the neutrals. Central Powers. And here, as you can see, we've got a couple of declaration of war slips down here. Germany has declared war on Russia in R3, which is this territory, and Austria-Hungary has done the same thing. Now they've handed those slips in at the same time so that they happen together. And so 20 forces from Austria-Hungary will go into R3, and 200 forces from Germany will also go into R3. Now Russia will now have a chance, knowing that they've been attacked, to move anything in to defend that they can. The original 325 that they have right here will get a defense bonus, and let's say they decide to move in another 325 to defend. Now those will not get the defense bonus, so they'll be calculated separately but in the same battle. And now Germany and Austria-Hungary are attacking 650, and the result of that is that the Russian forces are reduced to 109, and this division has been wiped out. And so now back down here, the German forces were wiped out, so now they're down to 3 there. And since they sent 200 in there, they're down to 33. And so, well, let's say that that's all the war that the Central Powers want to do. So now they go into their movement phase. And so let's say that Germany wants to move 200 troops from G2 to G1. So up here we'll move troops up there. And Austria-Hungary wants to move more troops out to their border. So we're going to take 20 out of here and move them into this box. And so now their movement is done, and let's say all the Central Powers movement is done, then it will go to the Allies now. And the Allies will have a chance to declare war. Well, let's say they have no war to declare, and let's look at a little bit of movement here. So the Allies are going to move, let's say. Great Britain has 381 troops. So let's say they decide we want to bring those 381 troops into F1 of France to defend against Germany. So we'll move that navy down here. And now they've got 661, so they can move 661 troops. They only have 381, so they'll use 381 of that 661 to move those forces into France. And they can do that because they're not declaring war. They have permission from France to do that, and so they move into F1 that way. And that's how navies work. And once again, you can only use your troops and your navy once per turn. Now another thing we have here on the map is the Ardennes Force, which is labeled right here. The Ardennes Force will only allow you a small amount of troops to move through because it's a very thick, dense forest and it's difficult to move through. So that's one of the geographical boundaries that you have to worry about. So once again, just to sum it up, you can only use your forces once per turn, whether that's to move in for battle or just to move peacefully. You can only use your navy once per turn as well, whether you're going to war in a naval battle or you're moving troops. That navy can only be used once per turn. Now, for example, since you moved 381 British troops into France, you would take 661 minus 381, and you still have some navy, and you can split that navy. Okay, for example, I'll copy that box and paste it, and now we have 2 navies. So I could split that navy and change it here to 381, and I'm not going to do the math right now, but whatever was not used in 381 would be left in navy up here. We'll just say 300, just to make it easy. So you can split your navies and do it and go in as many directions as you want to. You can only use your forces once per turn, however. And then, of course, after the Allies were done, the neutrals would go. So that's really what a sample turn looks like. You're really not limited only in that you can only use your forces once per turn. Now you may have 5 turns in a day, and that means you could move your forces 5 different times if you can get 5 different turns in. So that's a brief summary on what a turn looks like. Some countries will develop the chemical weapon of poison gas. Poison gas is very unreliable and volatile, but it can destroy between 1 and 5% of forces before the battle even starts. If you're going to use poison gas, you'll have to notify the head table ahead of time. In the World War I simulation, you see here in the North Sea zone we have U-764, which would be our submarine group, and we have the British Navy up here of 661. So after the battle has been after the day is done, the 1914 day or year is done, you would go in and you're going to make your calculations here about what the U-boats have done. And let's just